Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Colorado Comic Book Kid, coming to you almost live from the Centennial State. You can call me Colorado, you can call me the Kid, just don't call me Maybe. Thanks for checking out another weekly pull list review, the show where we review weekly what pulls come from the list. On a scale from humble to huge, we're coming in halfway this week. 23 titles with an additional 13 variant covers. As always, first things first, let's check out what this week's first issues number 1 bring us. First up this week, Black Badge. I think this one's flying under the radar. It's a good story with interesting characters, very cleverly establishing their background. Enough character development in this first one with some stylistic drawings to match. The story seems well done. It does make it a little tougher to enjoy the reading with the stylized art, but not going to ding it for that. Enjoyed this book. I think it's got a lot of potential going forward. Going to continue to follow it after this first issue. Up next, it's no surprise to anybody, the world's greatest comic magazine. It's back. Fantastic Four. Written by Dan Slott. Art by Sarah Pichelli. Beautiful cover A here by Asad Ribic. He's a great artist from Croatia. They did some really good work on this cover. And just as we're not distracted by it, here's the Virgin variant, an incentive Virgin variant. Don't know what count this is out of. If anybody knows, let me know. I'm curious to find out. May have to go research that after I get done with the video here. But a much awaited return of the Fantastic Four. 3+ years they've been out of the picture. Glad to have them back. Speaking of Sarah Pichelli, we also have her promotional cover here. This was the one that we saw in all the teasers. Really enjoy the backlighting on that. And how the 4 still stands out. Reminds me of the black and white costumes. Speaking of black and white, a nice Jack Kirby black and white variant here. I picked this one up instead of the 4 art germs. It worked out to be about the same. It was a toss-up. Saw a lot of those art germs, only saw one of these, so I thought I'd snag this one. Human Torch, The Thing, Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Girl, The Amazing, and Jack Kirby. Bringing us America's greatest fantasy characters. And look at that. Fantastic shooting up the signal in the sky, the name of this first issue, right up there with the Fantastic Four flare gun. If you don't understand the relevance, I suggest you go pick this up off the shelves and give it a read. Speaking of Mr. Fantastic, here we see Mr. Fantastic and Miss Fantastic. Read and Sue. Beautifully done by Mike Waringo. To me, they're the stars at this point in time. I'm waiting to see them come back. We get a little bit of taste here in number 1, and we're promised the Fantastic Four is going to reunite in the next issue. It better be the Fantastic Four. I don't want to see any substitutes. I don't want Spider-Man, Ghost Rider. I don't want anyone else showing up and taking anyone's spot. I want the Fantastic Four, and I want them back in issue number 2, just like we're promised in the last page here. A lot of last page revelations this week. We'll be touching on a few more of those as we run through them. This one, for example, Hot Lunch Special number 1 by Elliot Rahal, art by Jorge Fornes. Best food in town since 1950. Ellie's original sandwich shop. Finger sandwich indeed. So, great Aftershock book here. I was on the fence reading through it until I got to the last page, and I said, "Hole mole, how is this kid, how is our protagonist going to find his way out of this sticky situation?" This is a classic cover A. It was the last one on the shelf. Glad I was able to snag it. In my pull box was cover B. I actually like cover B better here. You can see the sandwich shop. Looks like a rainy night. Someone's up to no good, coming for somebody. So like I said, the last panel of this book's got me hooked for the rest of the arc. I'm further and further into the rabbit hole. Gonna see where our lead character lands with the mob. Lots of good things happening. Speaking of good things happening, I know a number of folks are excited about the Sandman universe coming back into creation, coming back into existence, getting a reboot. I think this is about 30-year anniversary also, if I'm not mistaken. So here's issue number 1. There were a lot of covers. This is the David Mack cover. Just as I said, we'll see a lot of last panels. We're going to see a couple more David Macks as we go through this week. At least one more David Mack. Jumping from DC Vertigo over to Marvel. Spider-Man, Annual #1, written by Brian Edward Hill. I'm always wary of somebody with 3 names, but in this case, lots of reason to be excited. He did a great job writing Miles Morales in this issue. So -1 point for the 3 names, plus 10 points for the great writing. Go Gryffindor. I got chills from the final page in this book. The writing on that page, in that last panel, the message that's being sent. There's such a powerful background story here that, for me, creates much more depth to the character of Miles Morales. I was excited to see that. Don't want to wait another year for what happens with Brian Edward Hill and Miles Morales. I'd like to see some continuation here. Haven't seen anything in solicitations for that. However, I'm going to keep my eyes open. Speaking of keeping my eyes open, I saw this variant for the Spider-Man Annual, and it looked really, really good. A good-looking Chris Anka cover A. Not to be outdone, we also have a great-looking variant here by Ryan Benjamin, cover B. Miles Morales, without the mask. It's not the hoodie he puts on in this throwback story. He does have a nice little alt costume, though. Makes me want to go hoodie shopping. That's all we have for #1s. Before we jump into the rest of this week's pull list, I want to touch on a top headline. Actually, 2 headlines this week. Both are really fun. The first one had me doing a double take when I read it, and that is that Matt Damon does a cameo in Deadpool 2. I missed this news when it came out in May, but it came back through today, and there was some additional information that came out with it. You're not going to find his name in the credits. You will find the name Dickie Greenleaf in the credits, though. That's what he goes by in this movie in terms of the credits, because that's also his name from Talented Mr. Ripley that he takes over the identity of. So being that we have somebody who is taking over identities that we cannot recognize here in this Deadpool movie, it makes me wonder if we could see the beginnings of some sort of chameleon. That would just have me spinning if we could see the chameleon come out of these Easter eggs. No telling what's in store. We'll have to stay tuned and see how that grows. But knowing the creativity here in the House of Ideas and the studios, I wouldn't rule it out of the realm of possibilities. The other headline, I said there were 2. This one's just a little fun update coming from Sony Pictures. They have finally named the equivalent of the Marvel Universe in their world. Presumably not wanting to be pigeonholed around a single character like Spider-Man and have some sort of extended Spider-Man world, they made space for nearly 1,000 characters they own the rights to by labeling their domain Sony's Universe of Marvel Characters. Doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. So it makes me wonder how many focus groups, over how many hours, consumed how much money to land on that name. I hope the answer is 2, because anything more than that was slightly wasteful. We could have come up with this on our own. That being said, on to what gets me out of bed every Wednesday, the weekly pull list. Let me know if you see anything below you have questions about. These aren't just pretty covers. There's great stuff on the inside too. And even though I picked these up on Wednesday, it does take me a few days to review them. So getting this video out on a Friday, no shame in that. It's all about how you finish. Remember the motivation. Starting at the beginning of the alphabet, and we're going to work our way through it. First up, we have Amazing Spider-Man, #3, Nick Spencer, and the great Rotley. Props to Reggie for shortening that name. Makes it a lot easier for me to say. Ryan Otley is just now known as Rotley. Here you have the great Rotley cover this week, and also a cover B cover by Steve Epstein. I'm a big fan of these black and white outfits they've got going on for the Fantastic Four. That's also why I like that backlit one earlier. And here we do see Spider-Man as a substitute for Johnny. I'm not going to allow any substitutes in issue 2 of Fantastic Four, but if I did have to make one, it would be for Spider-Man coming in for Johnny. That being said, I want to see the Fantastic Four. I already waited 3.5 years. I will wait a little longer, but only for that specific thing. Speaking of specifics, here we have a great design cover getting into the details of the Batmobile by Mark Brooks, Detective Comics 986. One of the few $2.99 issues still left in the DC covers. Only picked up the cover B variant this week for Detective Comics. I am a big fan of design covers, whether they're truly stolen from the design sketches or if they're intentional design sketches like this one is. I don't mind either way. This is a good looking Batmobile, high performance urban assault vehicle with jet engine compartments, upper sway locks, blast-proof visors, stabilization fins. Mark Brooks' signature fits right in with those detailed specs. You almost don't even notice it in there. Well done. Cast alloy wheels. Intake turbine. It just goes on and on. What a great cover. Love the detail there. Sticking with detail, it gets a little sloppy with all the copycats and Catwoman issue number 2, but Joelle Jones is doing it all. She's not sloppy, the copycats are. Let's be specific here. What she's doing here in terms of writing and the art is great stuff. I'm enjoying the ongoing impact of the wedding fallout. She must be collaborating for the long game here with Tom King. A game of cat and mouse, indeed. Copy cat and mouse, I don't know about that. If they're entering new territory, Art Germ is staying with the familiar. Here you go, the Art Germ cover for Catwoman issue 2. Clan Killers number 2. Big fan of Aftershock Comics. I tried this one, and I'm just going to keep moving on to the rest of my pull list. Enough said. So moving right along, that being said, Death or Glory from Image Comics, issue number 4. Riminder and Bengal do good work here. They've been having a great run with the entire story. This issue's not any different. They had some sensational things happen. I don't mind that. I don't read comics for the believability. I think what's going on here in the story would translate really well into some sort of action sequence for a movie or TV show. So I still support that thought here with Death and Glory. Self-containedness of this story is really good. Speaking of really good, there's a great cover B that goes with Death or Glory by Andrew Robinson. You can see Glory there. Reminiscent of issue number 3, yet distinct. Speaking of distinct, Rob Gilroy's got that covered here. Farmhand, issue number 2, another Image comic. This issue continues the detail-oriented background that I loved from the first issue. The screen-stealing botanicals that are drawn, the little drops of Americana, the reference to "Thank You Very Much," the Widowmaker playground balls. There's just some funny things happening in here. The Cracker County Rebels that play against the local Freetown team. They've got a vape shop. Go hit the vape shop and relax, I think is the direct quote from the book. So a little bit of all of Americana coming together in the South. I don't know if they have vape shops in the South. I've seen a few of those around Colorado. And then there's a license plate in here that says Maine. So they're really pulling different areas of the country together. There's no doubt that this takes place in the South. A little bit of a mishmash happening there in that sense. I wonder if that mishmash could come together to help them give a good mail page name. They're looking for one. Sending free swag out to whoever submits a good title for that. So I'm trying to think of a couple suggestions. If anyone else has a suggestion, go submit it yourselves. Try to get some of that free swag. Someone who's working for it is The Flash. And also Dell'Otto, doing great cover work here. Issue number 52. It is a Dell'Otto cover. There was some question if it was a Mattina or Dell'Otto. The credits on the inside are listed as Dell'Otto. The solicit was Dell'Otto. And I also believe that if you go into the detail around the face and look at some of Mattina's work compared to Dell'Otto's work, you'll notice that this really is Dell'Otto. in terms of the style and the detail characteristics around those facial features. Good looking cover. They both do good work. I'm happy to see this regular priced cover be by Del Auto. Automatic when you see that. Speaking in terms of automatic, nothing's automatic for these folks. Everything's a struggle in low lifes. Brian Buccellato and Alexis Senetek on art. It's a good story. 3 low lifes have come together to rise above some other low lifes. I don't know that there's going to be any winners in this as the tale starts to wrap up, but I'm intrigued where it goes. It's like a train wreck. You can't stop watching it. The New Lieutenants of Metal, issue number 2. They should just label issues of this book number 11, because they're all above the max limit. This one was as good or better than issue number 1 in terms of having a good time. The way that they steal lyrical quotes from songs and quotes related to the music industry and put them into the dialogue so naturally, I feel like I'm having a conversation with myself in that sense. No original thoughts, just use music quotes and movie quotes and you'll get through any conversation. It'll work and people will think you're amazing. Good work here by Joe Casey. And you see there on the cover the enemy they have to face in this issue, the grunge. Yeah, definitely a reference there. On the opposite end of the spectrum of fun is Outpost Zero. This book is definitely a thinker. It's one that gets into another layer of your mind and makes you contemplate relationships and growth and development. And in the context of this book, doing all of that within an isolated environment that you can't escape. How do you confront all of those challenges without ever having the opportunity to just go step outside and take a breath? Notice on the cover the 2 snow angels here. There's a character there that's still laying in the snow, and then a second snow angel that gets up and walks away. That is pertinent to the story, in my opinion. We'll see how those things unfold here on Outpost Zero by Image from their Skybound imprint. Quicksilver No Surrender number 4. If you saw my last video, I wasn't a big fan of the art going on here. It did seem to get better in this issue above the previous one. There was more story development here. You got Mr. Diggles as a character. You know, he's got a turtle that he can talk to. That really, I latched onto that in this one, so I'm enjoying it. But I'll be honest, there's not much depth here. I'm really not even sure how this book got onto my pull list, but I'm 4 issues into it, so I'm not going to quit now. I'm going to follow it all the way through, and I'm going to see how Quicksilver returns to our time plane. Next up, the book I was most psyched for this week, Relay number 2, Zach Thompson writing, Andy Clark on art. Aftershock putting out this great title. Big fan. And yes, in Donaldson we trust. That being said, they found Donaldson and then some stuff happened. I'm not going to spoil it, but I do think that Jad is being set up to be the next messenger of Donaldson, and this cover seems to allude to some sort of connection between them and how they are the same yet different. She Could Fly from Dark Horse, issue number 2 of 4, Christopher Cantwell writing, Martin Morazzo on art. Issue 1 was good. I don't know if the hype carries over to issue 2. There was a lot more being revealed in this issue. I look forward to some clear conflict being established that comes to a climax that can be resolved rather than just a whole bunch of stuff being thrown together over these next 2 issues. Right now, the intrapersonal, the external, the environmental conflicts in terms of public relations and opinion, they all seem to be washing one another out, and it's a little difficult to see what direction the author wants to take this in. It also seemed to be a little choppier than issue number 1. I don't think that the art necessarily supported separating the jumps from one scene to the next. So that's my opinion. If you have a different opinion, let me know. It's a 4-issue series, so there's 2 more books to change my opinion on that matter. I do hope this turns into something amazing. Medieval Spawn and Witchblade, number 4 from Image Comics. This is the 32-page finale. And I think they wrapped this one up well. Nice little conclusion. I liked the tie-in between medieval times and today. It was clever the way they pulled that together. There wasn't, much in terms of the medieval battle. It was a little anticlimactic in my opinion. That all really came to a head in issues 1 and 2. 3 had a little bit of that going on. It was more so about the dialogue and the connection. But I enjoyed the art very much. I enjoyed the crossover. It wasn't very substantial, I don't think, in terms of impacting either of these characters' universes, but we'll see. Supergirl number 21. Just stop and enjoy. It's man's best friend, kissing man's best friend. It's a beautiful cover. You know Colorado's for dog lovers, so take that, Vermont. Next up, Superman number 2. You got cover A here. Bendis really dives into the personal side of Superman in this book, which was going on in Action Comics, so to see more of that in Superman, I find that interesting. He's really going into character development, so I'm going to give him a couple issues to get through that and see where it unfolds and how the supporting cast comes around Superman once we reestablish his identity, I suppose. Reestablish who he is. I don't know that we need to reestablish who Superman is, but to each their own, and no fault in that. Rogul Zar sets his sights on Superman in this issue, and Superman is racing against a clock. That clock is not a sundial, because there's no yellow sun in the Phantom Zone. So he is racing against time to get back to somewhere where he can have full strength and face the evils ahead. We'll see how time factored into being an enemy. A nice moment in time here with this Adam Hughes cover. Stop motion camera action. I had to do a double take when I saw this in my pull box. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't see this cover in any of the solicits. I didn't see it online. Somehow I just glanced right over it, but it was there in the box for me. And when I took a peek at it, I really wasn't sure if it was a photo at first or not. I had to do a double take. It's looking good though. And I told you we'd see David Mack again. Here he is, looking good with those pastels, not to be outdone. Someone who's not coming at you, but coming for you. Sword Daughter and her father. This is the cover, eh? And as I was reading the story, I really wasn't sure what was happening at first, but it started to become a lot more clear to me as I flipped through the pages. Elizabeth, we meet 12 years in the future in this book, and she seems to have lost her father again at some point. So she's looking to rescue him. It's a little bit of the reverse of the current situation where he's revenging her. Also, something else that was a revelation in the story, it's not a spoiler, but the fact that when we see her 12 years later, she's able to speak, it took me a moment to connect the dots. Like I said, I wasn't sure what was going on, but when I got to the last page, closed the book up and sat there and reflected on what just went down, I said to myself, whoa, 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 those were real words coming out of Elizabeth's mouth. And when she's a child, she's only speaking in symbols and rough scratches. So I thought that was pretty cool. I want to learn who taught her those skills. Was it her father or was it somebody else? So that book definitely made me use my brain. I'm not going to complain this time, but let's not make a habit of that. Something we can make it a habit of, though, is this nice stuff coming to you on cover B of Sword Daughter from Mac Chatter. Let's keep more of that art coming out. That looks good. Finishing things up this week, Mirka Andolfo's Unnatural, Issue 2 from Image Comics. Reminds me a lot of the themes from what I read in Hanna-Barbera Snagglepuss Exit Stage Left. I'm not really surprised that I can make a connection between the time period piece that was going on there and what our Italian author is doing here. She's not only the author, she's also the artist. This is her cover A work. And you can see Art Germ's cover B work here also. As I said on Insta, it looks like these two friends just got done with a mukbang and they did a really good job. They're celebrating. So kudos to them. I wonder what it is they had. Hopefully it wasn't Little Caesars. Mirka Andolfo is doing a great job with this run. It's a 12-issue arc. We're at issue 2 here, so 10 more to go. I wish it would come out weekly. That's it, folks. Those are all the books I picked up this week. I do want to give a shout out to Jim Comics, who I love watching. I think he's one of the great channels out there in the community. Always knowledgeable, shoots it to you straight, does it for all the right reasons. He's a man on a mission, so kudos to him. Keep up the great work, Jim. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I have an attitude of gratitude for the subscribes and likes. Leave your comments below. This is your channel. Let me know what you think I should drop or add from the weekly pull list if I missed anything. And remember, the best hunting is happy hunting. Until next time, the Colorado Comic Book Kid, signing off.